Unsurprisingly, there are actually three careers in India right now that are very hot. One is products, right, which is product management, product leadership. The second one is design. Third one is data, right? Now, of course, there are different types of roles and responsibilities in each of these. But the reason why you're all here is either you are curious to know what is product management about, or excited about that particular responsibility and the impact that you can create in the organization, and interested in transitioning into that role, right? So, like you, there are many folks who are actually trying to do the same. If you look at it with numbers, with statistics, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I did a quick LinkedIn search to see how many open jobs are there on product management. You see about 43,000, right? And that is actually increasing quite a bit. Now, of course, product management has some very interesting titles. We'll talk about that later. But if you look at it, there is also a dearth of good product managers in this country. If you compare, countries, for example, US, you have about 1.8 to 1.9 million product managers for various companies and products doing it. And I'm not just referring to, technical products or technology products or digital products, but typically across the spectrum, people who call themselves in product management role. And we have a serious dearth because there are lots of companies today in India that are building products, right? Not just solving local problems, but also global problems. So in that context, there is actually heavy hiring going on, and we will see more of that increasing doing it. It's also interesting to see where most of the product managers are coming from, right? What is a prior experience, prior background, and number of years of experience. It's interesting if you look at that graphic in the middle, you will see predominantly people moving from engineering because, again, unsurprisingly, India, especially Indian IT system, ecosystem, has been predominantly delivery and execution focused with lots of emphasis on engineering, right? Development and QA and project management and program management roles, and folks moving from there into product management. These are the people who transition, right? And design and again, business analyst. If you're a business analyst, it's actually a natural path, natural progression to get into that. Another important reason lots of people are looking to get into this is very high compensation levels, right? And there are obviously good reasons for it. Product management is a very strategic role, which creates actually impact for the business by creating new products, taking products to the market, getting customers, and contributing to the revenues of the organization, right? So you will see, in India itself, average salary for an entry-level product manager is about 12.5 lakhs, right? And that significantly grows. And by the way, all these are good insights that you can get and lots more from the product management benchmark survey. There's an annual benchmark survey that the Institute of Product Leadership conducts across the country. The 2021 report that is published, and it's available on the website. If you go to productleadership.com and look for the product management benchmark survey, it gives perspectives from people who transition into product management, hiring managers, companies, HR, and also what the PMs are talking about themselves, right? Where do they spend most of their time? What are the skills that they employ the most? What are the skills that they are lacking? Some fascinating insights. So I think it'll be useful for all of you. So I appreciate all of you if you can go. And that report is free, so you can download that report and go through that. Okay, so now we talk a lot about product management. What I will try to avoid in this conversation is the titles, right? And lots of interesting titles in India, especially we are very creative with titles. In fact, India is the one which popularized the product owner title, worldwide. Although it started with an agile methodology, I think lots of companies started calling their business analysts as product owners as product managers, and more creative titles like, the other day I was talking to one of the alumni who actually completed a program and went to the organization and worked with HR and his leadership team to create a particular role for him. It's called a requirement scientist, right? Now that's the first one. I've heard of data scientist, but it's the first time I heard about requirement scientist. Who knows, 2 years from now, that might be a good title in India, right? But fundamentally, let's look at the responsibilities and the functions and the impact that this particular roles can create. And then we'll start talking about what is required to get into those roles and how you may want to approach that. What are some ways how people are doing it right today? So if you look at there are three key responsibilities. The first one is, often people think it is building the product right? Let's make sure whatever we are building, the product or the solution or offering, and taking it to the market and providing it to a large group of customers, let's do it the best way possible, right? Now that is good. But a far more fundamental responsibility for product manager is building the right product, right? Lots of product fails because they are built and delivered to the market that don't solve a compelling need, that don't solve a compelling problem for a group of customers, right? And you'll be surprised how many such products are there, that just come out in the market and then after a while they fizzle out. So the specific areas that product managers spend in that area is identifying customer insights, right? Deriving customer insight, bringing those things back to the team, and understanding what are the pain points, what are the problems, who are these customers, by the way, and then taking the next step forward. And what is that next step forward, right? It's not just enough if you found a compelling market need, right? You really need to create excitement within your organization. You need to get a buy-in from leadership teams or product heads, engineering heads, right? That this is a problem that we should be solving because there is a good opportunity, both for the business and also creating an impact. Now, what I found in my personal journey, and I've spent 25 years in building large-scale products for very large companies, right? Enterprise companies. And I started off my career as an engineer. I became an architect in a company called Sun Microsystems, part of some amazing life-changing projects, and transitioned into product management, and the company was bought over by Oracle, right? So I continued my journey, right from product manager, product line manager, group product manager, and most recently as senior director of PM. So both from a tactical execution roles to strategic decision-making roles. So one big learning that I've had in this, and I'll give you a simple example, right? We actually had a product that was positioned for enterprises for their employees to communicate with each other, right? And this product was built, I'm sure many of you are familiar with products like Slack or Teams or lots of chat applications that you might be using in your organization. And I'm talking about more than about 12, 13 years ago, where Slack did not exist or was not popular, and many of these things. So companies had either proprietary systems or some open networking systems based on specific technology. So our product was based on that open networking technology, where not only people can chat within the organization, but even across the organizations, right? Which is really fascinating, come to think of it. Today, it's not possible because of all these restrictions that these products provide. But at that time, I came across a very interesting use case, right? I read a case study, a real case of an Australian company, which actually used the same technology that we use in our product for enterprise communication. The same technology was being used in TV set-top boxes, right? The set-top box communicates with the backend server to show you the program guide, to store your recording, to bring back that recording and play for you. All of that is communication between device and backend, and the same technology was used. Now that fascinated me, right? I said, why don't we take this product and find that use case and find the customers who want to use that and go with it. My natural step was to reach out to sales and say, hey guys, there is a very interesting use case here. I'm sure you know some customers whom this might be relevant. Why don't we talk about it, right? I thought they would be excited, but I was mistaken, because the sales focuses more on finding the customers that they need to find right now and meeting their targets. So it took me almost one and a half year to come up with a solid enablement plan for the sales, train them, help them understand the use cases, go with them to lots of customers, understand these customers' needs, and come and translate how our product can solve them. And at the end of 1.5 years, this product, which was making $0 in that particular market, within the next 2 years started making $9 million, right? Now, which means you have just taken an existing product and positioned it into a different market with a little tweaks in the product, of course. So this is not about just writing requirements and providing clarity to engineering teams. This means you work with other stakeholders, including engineering leaders, sales leaders, marketing leaders, and everyone. So finding the right champions and making a case, influencing them is super crucial as you grow into product management roles, right? Now, of course, once you identify these compelling problems, you identify the market, it's crucial for the leadership teams to actually approve this, right? I'm sure many of you have found this in your own companies, which is, you have to make a compelling business case and a business plan to not just present about what problems and what product, but also forecasting revenues, right? This requires an understanding of finance and the understanding of product finance and how do you forecast, and working with other team members to say this is worth solving and worth taking it to market. So, three different levels of responsibilities. Often what you see in India is a lot of product managers focused on the first one, right? And that is natural, but if you are looking to grow within that role, the next two things become important, and we'll talk about how we can get going, right? For people who are looking at a better analogy of, who is this product manager, what's the role? Hopefully this picture conjures some images, and I'm sure some of you have seen these on Western Orchestra on TV, where all the violinists and pianists and cellists and all musicians are playing the orchestra, and there's this one person waving up and down with a stick in the hand, right? This person is actually conductor of the orchestra. Now, what is interesting about this person is this person actually knows how to play all the instruments, knows how to play the violin, the piano, the cello, but is not an expert in any of those things. But this person is a master orchestrator of the productizing process in the context of product management. What does that mean? A typical productizing process includes 5 stages, right? What we call as understanding the value that you want to create to the customers by identifying specific problems and pain point, creating that value through a product or offering, creating with innovation, differentiation, the reasons why customers have to come to you, and then communicating that value to the market, which often people think is somebody else's job, a product marketing job. While it is their primary responsibility, they get that information from the product managers, which is you build 5 or 6 features, but what's the value of it? What's the benefit to the customer? And then you take that out and communicate that value in a variety of forms, right? Either in forms of advertisements and messages and posters and whatnot, right? So that's there is a strong interlock there. And then the other aspect of productizing process is what we call as how do you capture that value in terms of money, right? Monetizing and revenue models and all of those things. And of course, finally, making that product available to the customers in the way that they prefer to get that from, and then hire or buy your product to use and solve their problems, right? So that's a kind of a mini image. Now, a lot of people ask me, what is a growth path for a product manager? How do I get into, and what is a growth path? Now, there are very different ways of explaining things, but I'll take a slightly different view. And this comes from one of my acquaintances who is also a product leader, Jason Shen, right? The way to read this is product managers are also have like personas, right? They're also a group of people representing specific characteristics and attributes. What we call them is archetypes, right? So there are typically some archetypes of a product manager. Now, before I get into that, let's understand this particular visual here. So there is a y-axis, which is what we call as head to heart axis, right? Head signifies rational thinking, logical thinking, decision making using data, and all of those good things. Heart means stories, people, emotions, feelings, right? Somebody who understands those better, somebody who comes from that perspective. Empathy, I'm sure you've heard of that word, right? So that's the y-axis. Now, x-axis, if you see, is a tree and a forest, right? Tree signifies specific details, right? Minute details, diligence, focus, and all of that. Whereas the forest signifies big picture, right? A big impact, larger things that will not only impact the team and the business, but also kind of a society, right? So if you now look at these and 4 quadrants in that, you typically have 4 personas in product managers, right? What I call as an analyst, and some people call this as a technician or a technical product manager. The other one is organizer, advocate, and explorer, right? So what do they mean? So analyst is a person who has these responsibilities, right? And focus areas. Typically, there are requirements and user stories if you are following a specific methodology, and you provide clarity and definition around it to all the teams that are participating and working to build that particular thing, right? It's also a tactical problem solver, very focused on minute details, right? Either design or technology or bugs that are there. What are the issues that are coming from customers? How do you triage them? How do you prioritize those things and those kind of stuff, right? And you absolutely need this person to keep an eye on day-to-day activities of the product development that is going on. The other persona or the archetype is the organizer persona, right? Now, the organizer is a little balance between the tactical part of it and also understands the people, because there are lots of other people who are working with it, monitors the projects for timeliness, for quality, and also comes up with priorities, defining priorities in terms of what should we build and what should we not build, right? And makes feel in general, people support it, right? Now, advocate, if you start moving to the right side of this quadrant, which is a lot more hard and a less of that data-driven and logic and rationale, is somebody who actually takes a customer-centric view, right? An ambassador of the customer, if you will, and bring their perspective, bring their challenges into the company, and works with various stakeholders, not just the teams, but even leadership teams, right? Who basically comes with very strong listening skills. Now, these are all the things that I'm talking about, that are the attributes and characteristics of the people that fall under various quadrants, right? Now, explorer is somebody who is very outbound, right? They're always looking outside, looking where the market is heading, what are the trends that are happening, whether it is technology trends, market trends, behavior trends, or regulatory trends, a lot of changes that are happening, brings them back quickly into the organization and rallies around the team by telling inspiring stories and bringing them all to the common page, right? These are the leaders that you see, typical product leaders and organization leaders that do this part of things, right? So these are 4 different archetypes. Now, if I map some specific titles in product management, this is how you will see, right? A product owner or an associate product manager, very specifically focuses on the details, right? On the technology part of it, on the design part of it, or requirements part of it. And that's how this grows, right? As you see. So if you are looking as an aspiring product manager, the left side, analyst and organizer, are great entry points. Now, of course, it depends on your own context, how much years of experience you have, how many times have you already done this, do you have this background or not, and see how we can move towards more of the right side. Now, this is a standard or typical career path that you see among product managers, right? Now, what is important to note, this role is very unlike many other roles in many different ways, but in one particular way, which is although the title has a manager, you are actually not managing people until usually you get it to group product manager or a director of PM, right? So you are still an individual contributor who is working in the context of one or more products, making sure that you are building the right product and building the right product right along with the other team members and delivering it to the market for customer success, right? But you are not typically managing a team of product managers or group of product managers until you get to group PM or director PM. And this is important because it also reflects and has an effect on what kind of skill sets and competencies are expected from product managers, right? So we'll look at that in a while. So if you see from a product to portfolio access, from operational to strategic, product leaders typically spend a lot more time on strategy, strategic thinking, product strategy, which is essentially asking a question of where do we play and how do we win, right? That is fundamentally product strategy about. And what I've noticed, and I'm sure you will see, in fact, if you look at lots of examples in companies today, the CEOs of most of the products that you see, in last about 6 or 7 years, if you look at it, can you guys hear a background noise when I'm speaking, or is that fine?
It's fine, sir. We can't hear anything.
Okay, super. Now there is some disturbance outside, so I thought I'd just ask. Right. So if you look at a lot of CEOs of many product companies today, right? You look at Facebook, Google, Amazon, Adobe, Microsoft, a lot of these products, the CEOs come from product management background. They have been PMs at some point in time. Whereas, if you go back 6-7 years ago, that was not the case. Sales leaders became CEOs, right? Now, there's a fundamental shift that has happened and will continue to happen for one very important reason. This role, the product management role, is strategic in the sense that you get a 360-degree view of the business, right? Now, not everybody gets to operate at that level, but as you grow in that career, you will start working a lot more closely with cross-functional business leaders, right? And your peers in other functions like engineering, design, marketing, sales, and all of that stuff. And hence, that is really important to understand part of it. Now, as I coach a lot of people, hundreds of people who are moving into or aspiring to move into product roles or moving from PMs to product leadership as part of my engagements with IPL, and every IPL participants get one-on-one coaching time with lots of skill mentors and career mentors, right? So as part of the journey, there are lots of myths that I keep hearing, right? And I thought I'll bring 3 top myths of product management. Hopefully, this will also answer some of your questions that you may already have. If not, I'm happy to take them soon, right? So the first myth I hear is product management is a technical role, right? And this is not surprising because lots of job JDs that you see for product managers, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, the companies that are posting also, if you look at it, many of them expect some technical knowledge and technical understanding. And while this is not completely a myth, it's important to understand there is a lot more than what the technical expectations are from a product manager, right? So it's essentially a customer-facing and a business decision-making role, right? Remember this, customer-facing, business decision-making role. Now, what does that mean, right? So I'll try to structure this in 6 contexts, right? Starting with customer context, right? If you're not able to understand and profile your customers well, and if you're not able to discover the problems that they have or pain points that they have or the challenges that they have in achieving something that they are trying to achieve, then what is on what basis are we going to build the product? So this is absolutely fundamental, right? Understanding the needs, discovering the customer, what we call this as in product language, customer discovery and problem discovery, right? And then there are validation that you do. So that is customer context. Now, once you bring those insights back and say, hey, here are the problems that our customers have, and here are who our customers are, how do we now take the next step in understanding, whether it is worthwhile doing? What is the approach that we are going to take to create this product and take it to the market, right? Is this going to be financially viable? Now, these are some very important strategic decisions, right? These are not tactical decisions. And hence, the expectation from especially people who are leading products is that you should have a solid understanding of various business models. How can we innovate on business models? What kind of strategy do we adopt to identify where we are going to play? What markets are we going to play? And how are we going to win in those markets? And all of that obviously requires understanding of finance, right? When I say finance, we're talking about business finance and accounting and product finance, right? Now, product finance is a very, very crucial skill. Now, think about it. Products that have not made a single dollar in revenue and will never possibly make, right? Great example is WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp never made any money from consumer business and never will make any money from consumer business, but it got sold, it got valued and sold to Facebook for $6 billion. Now, that is ridiculous, right? I mean, it might sound ridiculous. So which means, how do you understand and what aspect, what is the business model? What is the value that a company gets when you acquire this? There are, of course, lots of answers to it, right? But having a methodical approach and a structured way of thinking that is essential for people who are leading into the product roles, right? And of course, if you're coming from, let's say, engineering background or working with projects, you have innovation context, which means this is more centered around what differentiators do we create? How do we best, why should our customers come to choose our product compared to the other alternatives, right? We call this as value proposition in product language. What are the compelling reasons for you to buy or hire this product? And how do we engineer that into these products? So that is the innovation context. And all of this is good, but if the opportunity that you are addressing in the market is not compelling enough, a lot of companies don't even go for it, right? For example, the company that I worked for several years has a minimum bar of X million dollars of opportunity, without which new ideas, new initiatives will not be encouraged. People will listen to them and then say, oh, that's a great idea, Sai, but I think, the opportunity is too small for us to spend people, time, money, energy to build it. Now, it's important for you to understand in your organization, what is that threshold or what is that baseline? And hence understand how to quantify that market opportunity to solve that business problem, right? Now, of course, there are lots of process related, context and leadership related, which I'll talk about leadership in a second. But a fundamental responsibility of product managers and people who are leading products is understanding the priorities of the organization, right? There are business priorities, there are market priorities, and then you have to factor that in prioritization, your backlog, and showcasing roadmaps, defining roadmaps, and executing on those roadmaps, right? So this essentially is all the sets of activities that PMs at different roles do. Now, if you're a product owner, you're focused on one or two activities here, one or two contexts here. If you're a PM, you're focused on different ones. If you're a director of PM, then multiple things here, right? If you're a chief product officer, you're pretty much responsible for most of this, all of this stuff, right? So that's the way to think about, and not just somebody who has a technical skills or. The second myth is, again, PMs just write requirements. Now, again, this is not entirely false, because it depends on the perspective the person is taking. If you are in the engineering team, if you are in the design team, if you are in the marketing team, if you are in the project management team, all you see product managers is essentially providing clarity to requirements, defining what should be the outcome of it, and then working with the teams to build that and test it and see whether it is working or not, right? But it's a lot more than that. Now, today, if you look at it, many organizations have adopted a very different way of product development, right? You would have heard of methodologies called agile methodology or Kanban methodology or different things, which means that now you are building in collaboration with different functional teams, which, as I said, you're closely working with developers, testing, designers, marketeers, sales, customers, leadership teams, and all of that at a level where you are operating at. Now, as you move into leading roles, you are doing the same thing, but now you are doing with the peers who are your leaders, like an engineering leader, a finance leader, a sales leader, a marketing leader, who has their own specific set of responsibilities. But as a person in product role, as a leader in product role, you are making contextual decisions in your functional area, but working with this cross-functional team. So building that understanding, having a working understanding of those cross-functional areas comes in very handy for you to be seen as an effective PM or an effective leader, right? So that is crucial. The third important myth, and this especially comes from people who are looking to do certain programs, certain learning, certain professional upskilling, right? Now, my answer, contrary to what many people think, is no, a certification or an MBA or a business degree is not a requirement to be a product manager, right? Now, the only reason where I see that useful is you are able to signal to the market, you are able to signal to your prospective hiring managers that you have gained certain skills, you have built certain skills in a very structured way. And also the relevant set of skills, right? I mean, today there are a lot of programs, MBA programs, PGDM programs, certificate programs, which bring in a whole collection of things and put that together just to make sure that you feel that, oh, 5 months, 7 months, 10 months, 18 months, I'm doing something, I'm keeping myself busy. But focusing on what is the most relevant skills for you at your stage of your career is very crucial, right? If you're an aspiring product manager, what are the most important skills that are required for you to make that transition? If you're already in the product role, what are the most important skills that are required to get into the next level? Because what got you here will not get you there, right? So, while it is not a requirement, a lot of people think that it is a requirement. In my view, this provides a structure. Because product management is a bunch of pieces of puzzle, right? Lots of pieces of puzzle. So you have to put that together. Now you can do this on your own, by the way, right? All of you can sit at home, read a bunch of blogs and books and videos and everything, and try to put the pieces of the puzzle together, which is not, by the way, time consuming, confusing, and all of that. And hence certain type of programs will help you get that thing. Now, if you have noted, I've used a particular word very specifically, right? Skill. Now, a lot of people confuse knowledge with skill. Knowing something is not the same as having the skill to do it, right? Lots of people, say, I understand revenue models, I understand market analysis, I understand market research, but are you able to apply that knowledge in the context of some product idea, in the context of some project, and then demonstrate and then showcase to people or yourself and gain confidence that you now know how to do this and you have evidence to back that up, right? So that is super crucial. Why is that important? Because today, if you want to make a career transition, my single most important advice to all of you is do not bet your career on your resume, because everybody's resume looks awesome these days, right? And if there is that job opportunity that you've seen on any of the job portals like LinkedIn or Naukri or Indeed or whatever it is, they've all made it so easy for people to apply. All of you can just click one button and your profile is in, right? Now imagine what happens on the other side. And by the way, I've been hiring, I've hired 60 plus product managers in my career, and I've been on the other side as well, which is, I'm currently hiring a product marketing manager. And when I posted the job description, within 4 hours, there are 380 applicants, right? 380 people apply to that role. Now, it is humanly impossible for anyone to go through all those 380 resumes, right? I'm sure you agree with that. So hence, what is the techniques that people employ? Look for keywords, right? Now, obviously, the people who are applying for that also know that they're looking for keywords. So I'm going to add these keywords to my profile. It's called keyword stuffing, by the way, right? And what is the barrier for doing that? Absolutely nothing. Anybody can add keywords to your resume. So now, hence, everybody's resume looks good. So my single most important advice to all of you is don't spend too much time decorating your resume, but spend more time in what I call as building your personal brand, right? And one way of doing that is start demonstrating your skills. Now, of course, you have to build those skills, but before you build those skills, you need to identify what those are for you, and then start building them in the right way. And if you do that right way, you have something to demonstrate and start showcasing that in many ways. There are many, many ways that you can demonstrate today, right? And by the way, in that example that I gave you, that I was hiring and 380 people, there's this one person who did not upload a resume, who just sent me a YouTube link saying that, Sai, here is who I am, watch my 2-minute video. And that 2-minute video, this person described who this person is, what value that person can bring to you, what were that person's key accomplishments, and why I should hire that person. Right now, guess who I spoke to first, right? Obviously that person. So it's not just me, it's a industry is moving towards this. Lots of people, companies are hiring based on challenges, case studies, product teardowns, not based on the resume alone, right? So hence spend less time on resume, more times on building those demonstrable skills, right? So that's the most important part. So how are others doing, right? As I said, for several years, I've been working with lots of people who have moved into now product management and leadership roles, and I'll synthesize those things for you here, right? But before we jump into it, understand how a hiring manager is looking at people when they are trying to hire for product managers, right? There are 3 dials. Think of these are car dashboard dials on your car, and there are 3 areas, right? One is domain skills. Now, many of you understand what domain skills are, right? So if you come from a specific industry or a domain, it could be security, it could be e-commerce, it could be healthcare, it could be manufacturing, it could be, whatever, right? So now domain skills often cannot be taught through any specific programs, right? Usually you need to have experience in that. You need to have built through that to know what is the industry like, what is the market, who are the kinds of players, and what typical problems exist in that market part of it. The second one is functional skills, and I'll spend a little time on what those functional skills are. And the third one is leadership. Now, as a hiring manager, ideally, I would want the hiring person that I'm hiring to be high, maybe 8 on 10 or 9 on 10, or in some cases 10 on 10 on all these three dials. Now, some of you may not have all of these three, which means that the ones that you have should be extremely high, right? So for example, if you come from networking domain and you spend 10 years in networking, so you understand switches, routing, all those things, but you have very little functional skills for a product manager, right? Now, what are functional skills? Typically, you see engineering, marketing, design, sales. These are all functional skills for that particular roles. Similarly, product managers also have functional skills, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. But if you have less functional skills or no functional skills, now, which means you should be very high on domain and leadership to be able to even convince and influence that hiring person, or vice versa, right? So make sure that you try and build these skills in all the dials as far as possible. Now, these are some of the, not some of the, actually it's a very comprehensive view of product management competencies at various levels and stages, right? The way to interpret this is all the blue part that you see, which is three major decisions that you will be involved in, right? Choosing to build a product or not. And this is fundamentally based on customer insighting, identifying, discovery, validating the needs, validating the customers, understanding the landscape to see who else is playing, can we compete with them, and also understand why customers choose us over the others, and of course, a bit of finance, right? Financial analysis. That all of that contributes to that decision on choosing to build or not. The next one is building profitably, right? Identifying the needs is one thing. We are going to spend time, energy, resources, and efforts in building this. Is it worthwhile, right? How are we going to take this to the market? What are the opportunities in different segments? What is the forecast of finance and money that we are going to get? And these are all, by the way, remember, forecast. There's nothing real here about it, but it is based on institutional knowledge, institutional understanding, and your own application of these skills to bring that information back. And the third one, the light blue one that you see, is where lots of product managers and product owners in India are, right? Building it right, which is about product planning, right? Using the attributes, characteristics, needs, and behaviors of the customers, and defining the problem statements as requirements, providing that clarity, working with design teams to create prototypes and markups, and implementing those and taking it to the market and defining a roadmap, right? Lots of people spend time here. Leading into product roles means getting into the darker shades of blue. The red ones, a lot of companies call this as outbound product management or also product marketing, right? Now, this is also very important for senior roles in products, because there is a strong interlock between the product management, product marketing, and sales teams here, right? So that's about go-to-market strategies and sales enablement and identifying the specific segments to go to targeting, positioning, and all of those things, right? So this is a comprehensive set of competencies. Now, don't get overwhelmed. Don't get worried that you have to get into all of these things, and that is not true, right? Start somewhere. And if you're an aspiring product manager, I think the light blue ones are the ones that you should be focusing on. Plus, one on the customer insighting part, which is absolutely crucial. But if you're looking to grow in your product management journey, I think you should actively focus on a few things. One is, how do I interpret the vision of my company, right? The vision is usually set by executive leadership or owners or business leaders or anyone, and translate that into an action plan. Now, what is that action plan? It is often product strategy, right? Now, when you have a product strategy, which means where are we going to play and how are we going to win, to implement that product strategy, you are going to have to work with various teams, as we talked about, which means leading people, influencing them without authority, because not all of you will report to you, understanding the financial aspects of it, negotiations, conflict management. These become some super crucial soft skills, right? Now, people call these as soft skills, but in my experience, these are the harder skills, right? So some of these things become extremely important if you, either an aspiring product manager, especially for people who are growing into product roles. Some skills here, for example, negotiation, conflict management, executive presence, all of these becomes very, very compelling. Now, I'm assuming all of you are looking to grow in your career, right? And career development, career transitions requires work. It's not easy. Believe me, I've been through that myself, and I've seen many people go through that. It requires a lot of work. But there has to be somebody who needs to design that plan for you, your own plan, working with you, and define the career path. So I strongly suggest find a mentor, find a coach who can help you do that. Without that, it's going to be extremely complicated, and you'll get frustrated because you think what is right and go out and try it. It doesn't work out, then you come back frustrated, right? So my advice is in all these things, we all have blind spots. So identify, find a mentor or a coach. And in India, I found that it's extremely challenging to find. And hence, I spend a lot of time along with many other faculty at IPL who provide one-on-one coaching for people, right? Because that to me is can create a significant impact. I have benefited immensely personally from that, opportunity, and many people like me have benefited, and hence paying it forward to the others. So find such people and see if you can convince them to become your coach. And finally, to summarize, here are some very prescriptive steps as a career strategy to make a transition from where you are to the next stage or next level where you want to be, right? Start with building a personal brand. Now, it sounds complicated, but it is not. As I said, what is building a personal brand? The number one objective for that is you want the people around you in your team, in your organization, or even prospective hiring managers outside in a different industry, different company, to see you differently than what you have been, which is a resume, right? And how are you going to convince them that you are different? You have the necessary things to perform that responsibility, that job. And that means that you have to build those skills to be able to demonstrate that to the others, and build the right skills, build them the right way, and get noticed by hiring teams and leadership teams within your company or outside. And of course, all of these things are easy to say, right? You can join any program and say, okay, design thinking. Oh, great. I went through these steps of design thinking. I learned what it is. And then I did some assignment, and I think I know about it. A better way is, I would suggest all of you to think of a product idea that you always wanted to build. Or I'm sure all of you are using some products and you found some problems with them. How would you think about solving them? Not from a feature standpoint, but beyond that, from a business model standpoint, right? So working in the context, applying the skills that you've learned in the context of your own idea will get you a most realistic experience of learning by doing, right? Learning on its own is different. Learning by doing, has been proven scientifically that you will retain longer and you will actually learn from mistakes very effectively, right? So that's hopefully specific steps on how to make a transition, what is needed to make a transition, and how can you go about acquiring those things and building those things, right? So that's all. I'll stop now, and we'll take a lot more questions if you have. I see some of them already in the chat. So please go ahead and post. And Sharana, if anybody is asking questions on LinkedIn, you can either bring them here, or I can connect with them later and answer those questions.
We have some questions from LinkedIn and other areas. So would you like me to read them out to you?
Yeah, please bring those. But meanwhile, I'm going through the ones that are asked, in the chat here, in Zoom chat here. So I'm seeing questions around roles and responsibilities. Hopefully that got answered, Ankit. If not, say something on chat, and I'll if there is specific question that you have in the role and responsibilities, I'm happy to answer. Right? I've seen many QAs become PMs. I couldn't see QA role in the slide. No, that's true. So engineering, by the way, I don't know who this is. It says anonymous attendee, but by the way, engineering encompasses quality as well. So at least I don't treat QA as something separate. It's a part of building that value, right? Okay. Now, is business analyst course require compulsory? No, absolutely not. Subhadeep, business analysis is about, you are an interface between a client or a business, translating those business requirements into project requirements or product requirements. So you are expected to have domain understanding, to understand the business and the area that the customer is working or client is working, but translating that now into the teams that are solving that problem, right? Now, the same concept, if you take this, not just one client, but a whole bunch of clients, right, which is market, translating those requirements into something that the functional teams can understand and then solve a problem using product or solution is a very useful skill. So it's not required, but those are the ones that are applicable even in the product course. Okay, a few companies have a head of product. What is the equivalent of this role based on what you said? Head of products often is a vice president of products, right? Who reports to chief product officer. So again, anonymous attendee. Gayatri, I don't remember product management as a function at least 10 years ago. I'm curious to know how this evolved. So Gayatri, yes, it has actually evolved and also grew in influence and impact, right? 10 years ago, if you think about it, most of the IT ecosystem especially was focused on delivery and execution. So the focus most on quality, delivering on time, delivering on budget, and making sure that the client was happy. But you saw lots of companies started building products for large groups of people. And that meant that the founders or the entrepreneurs themselves are product managers, right? The difference between a product manager in a company and an entrepreneur is there are several differences, but fundamentally it's about who's taking the risk, right? An entrepreneur is taking their own risks, taking their risk and solving the problems, trying to find what problem to solve, trying to find the customers to whom that matters, trying to find the right product, trying to find the right revenue model, trying to position it properly. In company, most of that exists, but the skills that are required are very similar, right? So it has grown in function in large corporations. It has grown and evolved in startups and early stage companies now, right? So the maturity has increased, if I may say. Okay, if someone has excelled in doing services, will they be able to move into products? So here is the thing. What is different from services is fundamentally a mindset, right? A product mindset is quite different than a services mindset. So if you're a person who have the ability to unlearn certain things and learn new things in a more practical way, getting your hands dirty, getting your feet dirty, and putting that into work, absolutely possible. I've seen dozens and dozens of people who have spent 15 years, 18 years as in services, in solutions architects, account managers, moving into product roles. Now, remember, they don't move into product management titles. Often, if you are 10 plus years or 12 plus years, and you want a product manager title, there are other things that companies will evaluate, right? Are you too expensive? Most often you may be too expensive, right? Instead, think of product management as a role and not necessarily as a title. So in that case, absolutely possible. Okay, good. I'm just skipping most of the things that we covered. How to get insight on current market analysis. Are there any free tools? My friend, there are dozens and dozens of tools. But if you don't have the ability or the competency and skill to ask the right set of questions, to look in the right places, tools will not be able to help you, right? There are lots of tools for enterprises, lots of tools for consumers. For example, Facebook Analytics, Google Analytics. These are some amazing tools that will give you insights about their customers, right? If you are targeting some of their customers for different product or offering, these are fantastic tools. But if you are not able to identify what are the attributes that you need to look for, then the tool is not of much use, right? So less on tools, more on frameworks, processes, techniques, and then you can be able to use different types of tools. Yeah. Now, what are the career opportunities? Last one, for bilingual who's looking for a career in product management. Now, especially Anusha, I think you mentioned Japanese, right? I know a lot of people. In fact, several companies in India are actually Japanese owned, right? I'm sure you know Rakuten. And there are a few other companies, Korean companies, Chinese companies in India. Now, remember, one of the things that we discussed about the skills for product managers is not just the functional skills, but the ability to tell a compelling story, the ability to influence the stakeholders, the ability to negotiate and resolve conflicts, because there's going to be a ton of them, because this is a decision-making role. So which means you will have to work with senior people across the functional teams. So if any of those stakeholders are best addressed, best discussed in that other language, you obviously have an edge, right? So finding those opportunities and targeting those opportunities might be the best way for you to transition into that. Right? Okay, good. Any other questions?
There's one question from Divya Chetan.
Yeah.
If you had to stack rank the top 3 most important attributes that is required for a product manager or leader, what would they be?
Wow, excellent. Now, again, there are lots of them, but since you've asked me to prioritize and I'm a product manager, let me prioritize, right? Number 1, curiosity. Number 2, customer empathy. Number 3, getting things done. These are the 3 most important traits or attributes for anyone if you want to become a product manager. Now, these are not simple things. Believe me, curiosity is so important, because for everything, you are going to start with why. Why is this happening the way that is happening? Why are the customers doing the way that they are doing? Why are they doing this at all? What are they trying to accomplish, right? So that curiosity will drive you to get insights, and getting insights either from data that you have gathered or from qualitative discovery, interviews or user research, customer research, market research is the most important one, right? So hopefully, and customer empathy, right? You are expected to take the perspective of your customers to the organization internally, right? Why, this is why if you guys have seen in agile methodology, the user story template says as a so and so. Now, why is it there? Because you are expected to take the perspective of that person, of that user, of that buyer, of that influencer for your product, right? So customer empathy is very crucial. Third one is, as a PM, there are way too many things that you will be doing. Way too many things. Believe me, it's very chaotic. At the end of the day, if your product succeeds, there is nothing like it, right? I mean, and I've gone through many such journeys. One product that we built, it took us, I spent with the teams for 12 years in a product. And that product today is used by 800 plus million people live, regularly. Now, that's a proud moment. You can say that story for life. But there are also lots of products that we worked and taken to the market and had to shut down. Right? So you will face a lot of activity, decisions, and challenges. And what that means is you cannot work on all of them. So ruthless prioritization, because you have things done, is the third most important trait. So hopefully that, that's my top 3 if you want. Okay. Anything else?
How was
All right,
CV?
then.
Sorry?
No, say that again. Was there a question?
From Santosh. How a CV would be selected if a person from development background applies for PM role? Does a course or certification work here?
Great question. I did answer that, but let me emphasize this a little bit more, guys. If you start thinking about your transition with a CV, if you think a certificate or a 3-letter acronym, a 4-letter acronym will in your resume will get you the transition, let me break the bad news for you. That is not how it happens. And as I'm also saying that as a hiring manager. So do not bet your career transition on a resume, even if it includes 3-letter, 4-letter certificate or a degree. What is more important is focusing on the outcomes, which means building the right set of skills, building them the right way, demonstrating it to the hiring managers, right? There are lots of people who are building up portfolios today, product portfolios, as part of your learning journey. So for example, the IPL programs, right? The postgraduate program in product management, which is 11-month program, which includes starting from, product management fundamentals and all the way walks you through customer insighting, discovery, bringing those insights, making the decision on whether to build that product or not, building prototypes, using design thinking approach, UI, UX, moving in, how do you prioritize, how do you create roadmaps, and then taking it to the market, how do you segment, position, target, using several digital marketing techniques. These are the most important ones to get into product management, right? Now, if you want to get in, lay solid foundations for growth, there are other skills, which is product strategy, leading yourself, leading the teams, influencing the stakeholders, art of storytelling, and of course the financial understanding. Right now, you have all these skills, and I'm sure many other people also have provide these things. But the most important thing is, as you go through these, is the context, is the environment encouraging you, providing you the support to build portfolios in each of those, so that you can showcase to people to say. And how do you showcase? I keep saying showcase. You can do it through a 2-minute video, YouTube video. You can write a 200-word article on some real example that you can pick and apply market analysis or pricing or whatever you have learned and publish it and get the attention of people. So you do that for every skill that you build, you already have a very compelling portfolio. So you rely less on your resume. And lots of companies, and including, by the way, several companies come to IPL to hire for product roles from this talent. And the way that they hire is not through resume, that the way they hire is evaluating you on your demonstration of skills in the context of a challenge. They provide a challenge and give you 2-3 days time, and you come back and present. For example, hey, here is our product, and this is our customer segment today. Now, if you were to position this particular product into a different market, how do you outline a go-to-market strategy? Now, whoever has read about go-to-market strategy, watched a bunch of videos, and all of those things will not be able to apply that. But if you've practiced it, if you've worked on a context of a product idea, every participant, let's say in this program, actually brings their own idea and work in the context of that idea, applying that skills. Now, that is a lot more effective than decorating your resume. So hopefully that provides, I'm giving a lot of emphasis, because you should not be disappointed because you've done some certification, because you've done some degrees from somewhere, that you are not getting into product roles, right? That's not the way that it works. Okay, good, excellent question, whoever has asked it, and hopefully, there's a lot more context than what you wanted to know.
There are a lot more questions, but I don't think we have the time to take this. So would you like to take one more question?
I'm happy to connect with people. I know, reach out to the organizer of this event, and I can spend one-on-one time sometime with any of you.
Okay, great. So in view of time constraints, we'll have to end the Q&A here. Thanks for the participation, audience. We can see a lot of questions. The Institute offers new 8 skill courses for every step of your career. Every course is built, curated, and designed by industry practitioners. So we do see a lot of questions coming up, and we're more than willing to answer all your queries. Kindly connect with our academics team for any further queries. All you need to do is scan this QR code for an exclusive one-on-one session with our academics team to clear all your doubts. I'll give you a moment here to scan the QR code. You can find the link to the same in the chat window. Please go ahead and scan the QR code for a one-on-one with the academics team to clear your doubts and for more queries to be answered. Thank you, Sai, for a fantastically interactive and insightful session. And thank you to our wonderful audience for participating enthusiastically, asking the right questions, and making the most of learning. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and a very happy weekend.